Do you remember Bloberino? We've had some adventures together. This time, we wanted to find out why big, heavy planes and big, heavy birds, like you'll see in this video, can fly. Would you like to know how planes and birds fly? Well, the secret is, and Jesi's gonna sing it to us.
High pressure seeks low pressure. Under the wing is high pressure. Low pressure on top, therefore high goes to low, and the wings lift off. High pressure seeks low pressure. Under the wings is high pressure. Low pressure on top, therefore high goes to low and lifts the wing, lifts the wing.
Uh-huh. Do you mind saying who you fly for?
I work for Abex Air. It's a cargo company.
Oh, neat. And what got you involved being a pilot?
I always loved airplanes and decided it'd be nice to fly them.
So my burning question for this video for kids, how can such a big, heavy metal piece of machinery easily fly in the air?
So airplanes are specifically designed, the wings especially, and the tail is designed so that air flowing over the top of the wing and air flowing underneath the wing, the air under the wing causes low pressure.
What does that mean? I don't know what low pressure means.
So the air flowing under the wing has less of a distance to travel, and so the air going over the wing, and because of the shape of the wing, I could get into it, but low pressure under the wing and high pressure over the wing. And air always wants to go from high pressure to low pressure.
Because there's more space for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the air starts pushing up on the bottom of the wing, trying to get to the higher pressure.
Oh.
Or to the lower pressure, sorry. And so it's pushing up on the wing, and that is what helps the airplane go. The engines also help force air over the wings, and they help help that process as well.
How do the engines do that? I mean, they're not propellers anymore. What?
Some airplanes still have propellers, and that is part of it. But the thrust of the engines is what is making the airplane move forward.
Well, what does thrust mean? It pushes air forward?
So jet engines take a little bit of air and they expand it, and then they force it out the back. That's it. It's like a fire inside the engine, and so once that air is forced out the back, it's going a lot faster and it's a lot hotter, and so that is what's producing thrust. That's what makes the airplane move forward.
So it moves because the air is going forcefully backwards.
Yep.
And then there's a vacuum created in front, kind of, so the plane moves forward.
Yep. Well, the vacuum is more to help with the lift on the wings.
What about like jet planes that don't have big wings? I mean, you know, like fighter planes.
Thrust has a lot to do with it, making it move forward, but even those wings don't have to be very big, because you'll notice that the bigger the airplane, the bigger the wings are, because the wings have to be bigger for the large airplane, but for a small airplane, they don't need to be very big to get it off the ground.
So it's all about creating lesser air so that the place where there's more air wants to move to where the lesser air is.
You got air pushing up on the wing, and that's what makes it lift.
But how it's so heavy? How, I mean, it doesn't seem like air is enough to lift up such a heavy monstrosity of metal.
It is, though. It doesn't take, you'd be surprised, it does not take much air, especially up at higher altitudes. Once you're going, it doesn't take very much, and airplanes are very precisely designed. People spend years designing these, running numbers and doing math and making sure that they're going to do what they need to do.
What about birds? Does the flapping makes a bird fly?
So the flapping is what helps produce the thrust for the bird. Airplane wings can't really do that. We aren't as flexible, I guess.
So the flapping generates the same principle of I'm creating less airflow. What about planes that are big cargo planes like you fly?
Same principle. Every airplane operates on the same principles. You got air pushing up from underneath that's pushing up on the wing, and that's what helps it lift into the air.
What about the flaps? I took video of the flaps coming in and out. What do they do?
So the flaps actually help the airplane to slow down. That's why we use them for takeoff and landing, because you need to slow down as you get close to the ground, because if you're traveling as fast on the ground as you are in the air, that would be very bad. We'd run off the end of the runway. So the flap actually changes the shape of the wing and allows the airplane to fly slower but still be able to maintain that lift.
So the flap extends out, which means that their air has to travel over more on the top than the bottom.
Yep.
But why does that slow it down?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is for our passengers on flight 2140. We are ready to board.
It's got a couple things that it does. It changes the shape, which can increase drag, and it can also...
Ladies and gentlemen, so please make sure you have two items. If you have more than two, this is
it's
the
not
time
what's
to
slowing the
consolidate.
airplane down,
If
but
you
it's
have any
allowing the
alcohol
airplane to
beverage,
fly
finish it
slower
before you
without
come to the
falling
gate.
out of
You're
the air.
allowed to take it on board.
So why does it land? You know, touchdown. What creates that?
So you are decreasing the throttles, which is lowering how hard the engines are working. Less thrust slows the airplane down. The flaps are just there so that the airplane is able to go slower without losing lift.
But don't you want to lose lift so you can land?
I mean, you are losing some lift, but you don't want to lose it all at once.
'Cause you'd
That would be
crash.
bad. Yeah, you would fall out of the air. That would be a hard landing. We don't like this.
Right. So when there's no propellers in the engine that's in front of the wing? How does that generate lift?
So the engines don't generate lift per se. And they don't have a propeller, but they do have what's called a fan. The fan helps draw air into the engine, and then the air is then compressed and expanded a bunch of times, and then it goes through.
So this is all in the interior of the
inside
engine. It expands.
You can't see it.
Right.
Then it goes into the thermal section where fuel is introduced, and that's where you get the controlled fire. And then after that, it's thrown out the back of the engine, and that's what's producing your thrust.
So the air has to be heated in order to do its lift thing.
Yeah. It goes through a fire section, which they add fuel, and it's hard to describe, but it's like a controlled fire inside the engine, and that's what heats that air and throws it out the back.
So the heating is what is important in terms of doing the work.
Yeah.
And how the heat is generated by the fuel in the engine?
The fuel is added to the air, and then there's a spark. And so that's what causes the fire.
So it's literally a fire.
Yes, it's a controlled fire. But yes, it is a fire inside the engine.
Oh, wow.
And the pilots have instruments that tell us everything that's going on in the engine. We can see what the temperatures are. We can see how fast the engine's moving, all the different parts inside the engine. We can see how they're moving and that they're moving together. My airplane even has a section that will tell you if the engine's vibrating too much.
And how can you modify if you need to modify? Is that what all the controls are? And
the main way the pilots control the engines is with the throttles, but we do have other methods. We just don't like to use them as often. That's if something is going wrong.
So the throttle can increase or decrease the heat in the plane?
It increases and decreases the fuel, which increases and decreases the heat.
How can you fly? How many engines are there on an ordinary commercial passenger?
It changes based off of the airplane.
Wow.
You might most jets will have 2 engines. Some will have 3, 4, all the way up to, I think some military airplane have like 6.
Wow. How many in an ordinary passenger? How can you fly with one engine goes out?
Yes, they're designed. You wouldn't be able to fly very high up, but they are designed so that if you lose an engine, you should be able to land it safely.
But you couldn't take off with.
Even during takeoff, if you lose an engine after a certain point, we're going to take it off and we'll come back around and land. They're designed and built that way. They have a lot of safety built in.
I see. And how did you learn all this? Where did you go to flight school?
Western Michigan University.
Oh, it's a university program.
There's a lot of university aviation programs, yeah.
How long did it take you?
It's a 4-year program, but if you do summers, it's like 3 years.
And what percentage of your fellow students were female?
Females make up, I think we are up to almost 6% of professional pilots. We make up almost 40% of pilots in general.
40%?
But only about 6% of professionals.
What you mean, like people who have a little Cessna that counts as a pilot?
Yeah. Anybody that goes and gets their pilot certificate is considered a pilot. But going all the way up to the airline transport pilot, we're almost 6% now.
And what's your interaction with the air controllers? I mean, they seem like they're so stressed. I wonder how you...
Everything we do on jets, we are being controlled by the controllers. They tell us what to do. If we are unable to do that, we tell them so and ask for an alternative. but they're the ones telling us we can take off. They're the ones telling us we can land. They're the ones telling us what direction, if they want us
And we'd like to welcome our
to go in a specific direction for traffic or whatever, or weather. They're the ones controlling.
Do they say go down runway 84 or something? I mean, are they really specific about?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's taxi, runway 24,
Switch over to the main blue
this
boarding lane.
taxiway, this taxiway, this taxiway. We have a map that we look at that shows where to go.
someone told me that autopilot could pretty much run a flight. Is that true?
So depending on the airplane, some of the autopilots are from 50 feet off the ground all the way to landing. They haven't built them to taxi yet, but they could do, as long as they're programmed properly, they could do pretty much the entire flight.
So program means computer, AI.
No, it's the pilots are the ones programming
Sacramento.
Oh,
and setting
That
it
is going
up
to be the
and
next flight
hitting
at
all
this
the
gate. That will
buttons.
be the next flight. So you're at the right place. It's going to be the next flight going out of this gate. We'd like to welcome our
and
advantage members and customers in group 6.
what do you find in
Group 6
terms
flight
of
2140
being a
to
woman in
Minneapolis.
a traditional male field?
Currently boarding
Do
from
you
1 through
do you have
6.
to work harder for respect or no?
Not. We're very professional where I work. I'm sure there's other places that aren't quite as nice, but where I work is very professional, and I haven't had any problems with it. That's
So
not.
you're a pilot, and I'm asking you to please explain to us why such a heavy, huge thing can lift off the air with such seeming ease. What's the deal?
So I fly the Boeing 737, and when I started flying small planes. The Cessna 172, which is the typical trainer that most pilots learn to fly. So the airplane was invented back in 1903 by the Wright brothers. The first flight was done in Kitty Hawk, and they had a series of inventions, including the propeller twist, the airfoil, and then putting an engine on a set of wings to be able to propel the machine to fly. And they had basically worked on other types of advancements that other pioneers had achieved to then evolve into what we know as the airplane today.
Oh, well, I don't think most people know that. We
Yes.
just think of the Wright brothers.
Yeah, and then a series of magical things happen below and above the wing that create a differential pressure called lift, and through a little bit of energy moving forward, that lift begins to propel the airplane into the air. And it happens with basically a little bit of speed, weight, and also wind coming in the opposite direction to allow it to fly.
What do the flaps going up and down do?
So the flaps really came into play years after,
Oh.
because what they do is they augment they change the form of the wing, and they basically augment the area of the wing and allow the airplane to be able to take off and land at lower speeds. So without flaps, we will have to take a much longer runway to take off and land.
Oh, that's interesting. So what exactly, the flaps control the airflow through the wing?
So the flaps change the shape of the wing, making the area of the wing larger, allowing it to basically take off at much lower speeds. Why is that important? Because otherwise we will need a much longer runway or a much longer takeoff roll. Typically, airplane tires have certain limits, around 190 miles an hour. So we usually take off at around 150, 160 miles an hour. If you take too long to take off, then you may be exceeding also the tire speed on the airplane. That's one of the reasons, not the only one.
So I don't think we are clear on the pressure difference, what that actually means. So could you say more about what the actual lift, how that gets the plane going?
So what happens is there's a experiment that was done where the speed of a fluid needed to accelerate through an area that was narrow, and in order for it to catch up at the end, that's kind of like how the airfoil was invented. And when that happens, basically that differential pressure, as the speed increases, lowers the pressure, and that's kind of what happens underneath of the wing. In order for the air over the wing to catch up with the wind that passes under it, it needs to speed up. So that difference in speed creates a lower pressure, and that's how basically lift is formed on the wing.
Do birds do the same physics, or how does a bird lift off?
So birds have feathers and a wingspan just like an airplane, and also they have wing that, if you look at a duck, for example, the body of the duck is too heavy for it to fly, and the wings are not long enough for it to, be able to carry the body. So most ducks do fly, but the ones that are heavy and chunky, and that you don't see them flying, is because their wings are not big enough. But typically, there's a ratio between wingspan and body weight of the animal that allows it to fly or not.
So is it a pressure differential again? If they flap their wings, it changes the airflow around the body?
So when birds fly, they're basically initially flapping their wings to get their masses up in the air, but then they can just, by extending the wings, glide. And the principles are more or less the same. Because the shape of some of the birds are just like an airplane wing.
Yeah.
If you look at the albatross, for example, it was used to design the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, which is the most modern Boeing jet that basically flexes the wings up, just like the albatross. And the inspiration in birds have been used in aircraft manufacturers to design basically aerodynamic shape of how they design airplanes.
But you said the Wright brothers, the early planes, didn't have airfoil, so it was just the propeller?
So the Wright brothers did have airfoils, but among the inventions that they also created was the twist in the propeller, which was really important because the engine was only like a 17 horsepower engine. It was a very small engine. And how was it going to push forward an airplane that was so heavy up in the air? But they had a combination of factors, strong headwinds, just the right conditions at that moment allowed the right flyer to fly during that day, because the engine just propelled the machine just enough time in the air for it to be able to sustain flight. And the first flight lasted only like 12 seconds, I think it was.
I'm still trying to understand the pressure differential. So if it takes longer to go over a top, longer surface and shorter to go under the wing, why does that mean that the plane is going to lift?
Yeah, so the pressure differential happens when the curvature of the airfoil creates an effect where the wing underneath is constant, but the wing over the curvature of the wing has to speed up in order for it to catch in the trailing edge of the wing. So that difference is what creates a differential pressure on the surface and allows the airplane to lift up.
Because it's moving faster, and so somehow that lifts.
Differential pressure is what allows the airplane to lift up. Yes. And if you have, for example, the jet fighters that have a much shorter wing. Airplanes that are used in. So they used a slight different purpose than an airliner, because an airliner needs to carry a lot of weight and doesn't necessarily need to maneuver like a jet fighter is. The jet fighter's main propulsion is the engine, and the thrust to weight ratios on the aircraft itself are much higher. So all he has to do is just advance the thrust and accelerate through the runway to basically get itself up. The wings play a much lower role in a jet fighter.
So is it a propeller driven The jets don't have propellers, duh.
The jets, the fighter jets don't. But you know, in small airplanes, typically you do have a propeller. Then you have also turbine engines that are pushed also through propellers. Those are called turboprops. And then when you're talking about transport category airliners, those are all powered by turbofan, turbojet engines.
So my passenger plane had that kind of jet engine, and there's no propellers involved.
The jet engine is almost like a propeller,
Oh,
but with multiple stages of fans pushing the air through.
how did you learn? Were you a physics major in college, or how did you learn all this?
So you can to learn how to fly. You can pretty much go two ways: the civilian way or the military way. If you choose to go to any of the branches, you can kind of go that route and learn how to fly.
Is that what you
The
did?
military. I stayed on the civilian side. I became a flight instructor. I taught for 4 years, and then I started flying cargo airplanes and then passenger airplanes.
Why did you want to do it?
What was that?
Why did you want to be a pilot?
Oh, since I was very young, I always liked airplanes and liked the idea of kind of what your question was: how can a machine that is so heavy get up in the air? And I was always fascinated by the idea of being in a cockpit with instruments and being able to learn the mechanics of how an airplane flew and all that. And at the age of 16, I took my first flight lesson and became a private pilot at the age of 17. And then a certified flight instructor at the age of 19.